What's up, guys? Welcome back to LIFM. Today we're going to be going over some of the legendary cards in the new set AMONKHET, aka potential new commanders for EDH. So I'm just going to go over the new God cards in this video, and I will be comparing them to the previous God cards in their colors as well. So we will start off with the White God, Oketra the True, or Oketra the True. And it is 3 and 1 white for a legendary creature, God. She has double strike, indestructible. And Oketra the True cannot attack or block unless you control at least 3 other creatures. Then she has an ability for the same as her casting cost, 3 and 1 white. Create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So the first thing is, these ones are just creatures, whereas their counterparts were enchantments and creatures. So even though they can attack or block, they're still always creatures on the board, not enchantments. As far as the abilities go, I think this one could definitely see play as a mono white commander. It has an ability to just create creatures at any time for 4 mana. Not as strong as Heliod would be in that instant. For the same amount of mana, he makes 2 1s, but they're also enchantments as well. But the ability is really strong. They do have static vigilance, whereas I believe Heliod's the one that gave his creatures vigilance. Yeah, other creatures you control have vigilance. So I think this one could definitely see some play. She seems really solid. And I like this. I probably wouldn't build a mono white deck around her per se, but I could easily see splashing her in another deck just for that ability. So yeah, this is pretty good. And at 4 mana, it's the same as Heliod was. 3/6 versus a 5/6. But yeah, I think this one's pretty solid. Let's move on to the green one, Kefnet the Mindful. And I think this one's probably going to see a lot of play. I personally played a Thassa deck of you guys have probably seen in the videos. It did moderately well, probably broke even 50-50. And this is the same casting cost, 3 for a 5/5, same as Thassa. Flying, indestructible. Thassa didn't fly, though she did have the ability to gain unblockable. So Thassa's static ability was your upkeep, you get to scry 1, whereas on this card, they all have the ability if they can't attack or block unless some kind of tribute or trial is met. In this case, is you have to have 7 or more cards in your hand, and of course the ability on this card is for 4. Draw a card, then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. So for 4 mana, you can put 2 cards in your hand essentially, trying to get you up to the 7 or more you'd need to use the ability, right? And if you're already at the amount of lands that you think you're going to need in your deck, 7 or more or something, you can always just draw a card, return a land, and then you can just replay that land on your turn, so you can consistently have 7 cards in hand. I think this one's really good, and I do think this one's going to see a lot of play. I think it's going to see some play in some control decks, probably not even as the commander, just as a card draw indestructible. So I like this one a lot as well. I do think that ability of drawing cards would be a lot stronger on an enchantment body that could only become a creature if certain conditions are met. Basically, I'm saying is this is a lot easier to remove from the board in a control deck than Thassa was. Because when Thassa's loyalty wasn't met, she was just an enchantment that was indestructible, whereas this is always a creature. Even if it cannot attack or block, it can still be removed by stuff like Source to Plowshare, Path to Exile, stuff like that. Anything that can remove a creature that's indestructible. But overall, I'd say this is really solid. And I mean, the plus side of them being creatures is they can crew stuff. I mean, that is a thing. Let us move on to the black one, Bantu the Glorified. And again, this one's 3 mana as well. Menace, it's a 4/6, Menace, indestructible. Bond to the Glorified can't attack or block unless a creature died under your control this turn. Alright, that's different. And for colorless and a black, sacrifice another creature, scry 1. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Yeah, I can see this. I can see a deck being built around this. Right off the bat, just base stats, Erebos is a stronger card, in my opinion. The ability to just draw a card seems stronger than having to sack a creature to scry. Erebos is a 5/7, this is a 4/6. Granted, this does cost 1 less than Erebos cost to cast. I definitely can see this being played with cards deck built around it. I mean, it's a sack outlet, right? So it can definitely be used in some interesting ways. This one's not for me. I much prefer Erebos in this case, but I can definitely see stuff being built around this. Out of the 3 I've discussed so far, this one's my least favorite so far. Let's move on to the red one. Hazaret the Fervent. Okay, so this one costs 4. So blue and black both cost 3, and white and red cost 4 so far. So this one has Indestructible and Haste. Hazaret the Fervent can't attack or block unless you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. And you can pay 2 colorless and a red to discard a card, and she deals 2 damage to each opponent. Alright, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. If you're using this as your commander, you're already in mono red, so the odds of you having a full grip of cards is slim, which means this can be on a lot. It can be on the turn you play it, really, or the next turn. So I like that. It's 4 for a 5/4 with haste, and discarding a card to do 2 damage to each opponent seems good as well. Now, if I had to compare this to Purphoros, I'd say overall Purphoros is stronger. Purphoros' static ability, if you build around it, is going to do a lot more damage to your opponents than the ability to discard a card and do 2 damage. Even though it's more damage per activation, Purphoros' ability just lends itself to doing a lot more without having to quote-unquote pay for it. I still do think this card is pretty solid, and if you play online on MTGO, you're probably going to face some decks with this as the commander. Some very aggressive decks. So I do like this one. I like it a bit more than the black one, actually. Let's move on to the last one. Veronis the Indomitable. This one costs 3, so we're back to... So 2 of them cost 4 and 3 of them cost 3. Death Touch and Indestructible. Veronis the Indomitable can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. This should be very, very, very easy to do in green. Okay, so you can pay 2 colorless and 1 green. Another target creature you control gains +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. So even if you don't have another creature that's bigger and you went the green weenie route, you can pump anything that has 2 power at least. You can just pump it and make this into a creature that's able to attack or block. So this is pretty solid. +2/+0 and trample seems pretty good here. I mean, Nilia gave +2/+2, and this gives for 4, and this gives +2/+0. Now, Nilia did give all your other creatures trample, whereas this is just going to give it to the creature you're pumping. But I don't think this one's that bad. I like this one. I think this is pretty solid, and having Death Touch could be relevant as well. I like this one. I definitely like this one. Of course, I'm very biased towards green most times, but I think this one's not bad at all. Not the strongest one, but it's pretty solid. And I say it's pretty solid because a lot of times this is going to be a 3-mana 5/5 that can attack and block. So I'd say out of the 5 of them, for me, it would go blue, white, green, red, black. And I'd say for these, the blue one is stronger than Thassa. Erebos is stronger than this one. Perforos is stronger than this one. This one and Nilia are probably about even. And this one, I'd say, is a little bit weaker than Heliod was. But let me know what you guys think of the new God cards, and if you're going to be using any of them in your EDH decks. And thanks for watching.